Call 1-888-FARMERS to switch, and you could save an average of $470 on your auto insurance. That's a lot of money in just a few minutes. With savings like that, you could be lounging on an impractical amount of ornate and overpriced throw pillows you bought for your couch. But you won't, because you're better with money than that. That's why you're calling us in the first place. Call 1-888-FARMERS to get a quote today.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Based on average nationwide annual savings survey data July to December 2020. Underwritten by Farmers Trucker Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliate. Products not available in every state.
Walmart believes every community should be a healthy community. That's why they've built a nationwide network of 59,000 healthcare professionals who help them care for the communities they serve. Last year, their pharmacists administered millions of flu shots, and now they're preparing more than 5,000 Walmart and Sam's Club locations to administer the COVID-19 vaccine. Because Walmart isn't just in your community, they're part of it. Learn more at walmart.com/COVID vaccine.
This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. My guest is Melissa Isaak, a very courageous lawyer in Alabama, my co-counsel on cases involving Chief Justice Roy Moore. We're going to talk about those cases and other matters in the third segment of the show. But for right now, country continues its collapse. $1.9 million bailout by the evil leftist Democrats, including a provision, believe it or not, where African Americans who got agricultural loans have them totally forgiven, regardless of whether they need to have them forgiven or not. And on top of the loan, they get 20% back. This is the beginning of reparations. This is where we're headed. Everything in this country is going to be divided, divvied up, handed out, mostly to the radical left, with nothing left, no pun intended, actually, pun intended, for you and your family, your kids and grandkids. This is the way that the radical left, using Biden as their stooge, is going to accomplish the destruction of this country. And when they destroy it and take it down to ground zero, which it nearly is in a mere 6 weeks, then they will impose what I believe will probably be martial law. And we're close to that right now, because we saw what happened with regard to the January 6th event in Washington, D.C. It wasn't a riot. There were some bad people on both sides, as I've said during my podcasts and prior radio shows. But the overwhelming majority of these people were Americans, ordinary Americans, who entered into their capital, hear that, their capital, because they saw the rank corruption in all three branches of government. And the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was the failure of the federal judiciary, which includes the U.S. Supreme Court, Trump's own justices and judges, to even review whether there was massive election fraud that gave rise to the installation, the coronation of this clown, Joe Biden, a clown who probably won't live much longer. His health is really frail. Just last Thursday, they wheeled him out. They obviously, jacked him up with steroids or something to make him lucid for a short period of time. But I predict that he'll die of natural causes probably within the next 3 months. First, I said 6 months, but he's looking worse and worse every year. Every day. The year obviously looks worse too. Then Kamala Harris will take over, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the rest of them, and they will usher in a complete leftist domination of this country. And at the same time, these evil Democrats are trying to get rid of moderate Democrats. Now, notwithstanding the fact that Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York is a criminal, I'll be bringing a lawsuit in all likelihood for victims of those nursing homes, class action. But they want to get rid of him on the grounds of sexual harassment. This is where you got to listen to Melissa Isaak, because she represents men. She doesn't represent women. She had an experience in the early part of her life with her mother that caused her to understand how white males in particular are treated in our family law system. She also has become an expert in defamation. We brought several lawsuits on behalf of Chief Justice Roy Moore over how he was attempted to be destroyed. But the thing that I've got to almost laugh at, it's not laughing because it's not funny, is that despite the fact that Cuomo should be impeached, despite the fact that Cuomo should be indicted for what he did, it obviously was reckless endangerment, is the fact that they have to find a new white male to destroy. You know, the Me Too movement, which started off with a noble goal, has turned into a radical inquisition of white males. And Cuomo, what he's accused of doing, frankly, does not arise to the level of sexual harassment, but they want to get rid of him. They needed a new white guy to take down. And this week, it's also Woody Allen, 30 years after the alleged events with his estranged ex-wife, Mia Farrow, and the daughter probably that was brainwashed during this period, claiming that he sexually abused the child. Well, maybe that's so, but why do you wait 30 years to destroy him? And now even leftist Hollywood won't deal with Woody Allen, one of the greatest satirists, film writers, and comedians of all time, someone who makes a point through humor. I use some of his humor from time to time. But this is where we are today. It's an inquisition by the radical left on all fronts. And it's getting to the point where this country is no longer recognizable. It really isn't. Banning of Dr. Seuss, banning of Curious George because he's a monkey. I guess now all monkeys are banned. And what's going on, for instance, with the FBI? They're good line agents. I know, I've represented some of them, but they are being misused. They are being sent out as the new American Gestapo to run down anyone who protested on January 6th. However legitimate that protest was, they're being demanded to turn over their cell phones. They're being demanded to either comply or get hit with a subpoena or a warrant. And if that doesn't work, to be indicted. It's a full court press, and also the social media, the big tech, the censorship, and then the censorship on the right, which is looking at itself as if it's vulnerable. Websites, some websites that I've even written for, not publishing things that I used to publish it routinely because they're afraid of the blowback of the left. They're cowards. There are many on the so-called conservative right that just want to talk. They just want to say what's politically correct. They want to follow the line of Fox News and others, of Sean Hannity and others, promising things that won't happen. They want to promote the Republican Party, which is deader than a mackerel, an old expression. It's time to move on. I've said throughout the week in my podcast that I'm starting a new political party with a separate organization because the Republican Party does not represent the American people anymore. Ask yourself what it's done. A $30 trillion budget deficit, and so far, only $2 million the result of Biden and Harris and the leftist Democrats. Of course, more is to come. The precedent has been set, but the Republicans did nothing about that. They did nothing about Obamacare. They stymied the president in building his wall, President Trump, so it's incomplete. It should have been done in 4 years, and a variety of other things. This party stabbed the president in the back during the last elections. Half-heartedly, they called for an investigation of the alleged fraud, but they never really wanted one because future presidential candidates like Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, and Marco Rubio, they don't want President Trump around. They're just playing the game so they can get the votes from Trump supporters. And then the president himself, and I'm talking about Trump because I don't recognize Biden as our president. I'm sorry, I don't. he threw his lot with the Republicans, mostly, I believe, because he thinks he's going to be indicted in New York, and he will be indicted in New York by a rabid ultra-leftist prosecutor, District Attorney Cyrus Vance, the son of Cyrus Vance, who was Secretary of State during Jimmy Carter's administration, on grounds of tax fraud and tax evasion. That's going to happen because both parties want Trump dead. But the Republican Party, being the sleazy, dishonest, unethical party that it is, frankly, goes out and raises money using Trump's name, even though they've stabbed him in the back. And Trump told them to stop this week, but yet he throws his lot with him anyway. So the bottom line is this, ladies and gentlemen, fellow patriots, is that we, the American people, must rise up. These politicians either are complete political hacks or criminals, or like President Trump, confused. And frankly, we need to move on. We thank President Trump for what he did. He did some great things for this country. But now it's time for new blood with a new political party. We need someone of the stature of a Ronald Reagan, someone who has firm convictions, but someone who also has class, someone who does not offend people that don't need to be offended, that can support what we're trying to do. We want to return this country because this country is on its back. It's dead. It's dead right now. We need to resurrect it to the vision of our founding fathers with conservative principles, with religious principles, with, frankly, just principles. And that's going to bring me into another subject I'm going to talk to in the second part of this broadcast today. But for the time being, we need to rise up. And that's why I want you to read my book. I didn't write it for profit. I wrote it during the beginning of COVID-19. It wasn't geared to the election because I knew that whoever won was not the political Messiah. We only have one Messiah, Jesus Christ, and we have the Father. And as we wrote in our Declaration of Independence, all of the founding fathers, written by Thomas Jefferson, input from Benjamin Franklin and John Adams, is that when in the course of human events, the sovereign breaks away from the people, we have a God-given right to abolish or alter that government and to form a new government by and for the people with equal rights for everyone in pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. That's what we need to do. So as of today, we need to take back our legal system. In the next few weeks, I'm going to be commissioning yet another citizens grand jury to seek the indictment of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and Frank Biden for massive bribery from communist China, Ukraine, and Russia. These people are bought and paid for by these leftist entities. That's why they're so leftist. They're owned by them. And we're going to be pursuing our Third Continental Congress in Philadelphia on Memorial Day of this year, in and around May 31st, in front of Independence Hall. We're going to form a new government by and for the people, a government that has an electoral system that isn't based on fraud, a government that has a judiciary that is elected and not got in place by virtue of legal bribes in terms of the way our system works. But in fact, they should be illegal political campaign contributions. That's why we have political hacks on our bench, and to root out the deep state in both political parties in the executive branch, and to get a real government by and for the people, taking it back to Independence Hall where it all began, keeping our military, keeping our police. These are the people that guard us to protect us. Why do you think that Biden and Harris have 20,000 troops stationed in Washington, D.C.? They think they're going to be overthrown. And the reality is they keep those troops away from the White House and from the Capitol, because if it were to happen in a violent way, which I don't want to see happen, that's why I wrote the book. That's why we have these other means to try to bring about a peaceful and legal revolution. It will be the military and it will be the police who actually let people into the Capitol on January 6th, who actually do wage a coup d'etat. Because this country has been taken over illegally. It's been taken over illegally with a fraudulent election. And we didn't even have the opportunity to prove that in court. And that's why the people are rising up. And that's why many of those who participated in that January 6th event at the Capitol, and I call it an event, were ex-military, police, and others. Because they've been much maligned, they've been assaulted, and the police in particular have been killed in the last many years. There's nobody standing up for them. And I'll be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Stay tuned.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
Don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad,
Special Prosecutor
very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Some of you may wonder why I'm so tough, because I send out press releases almost daily about Duke University. That's my alma mater. I was very proud to go to Duke University. It's in the South, it had warm weather. I could even play golf for a while, and then I got serious because my golf scores started to approach my grades at Duke. I graduated with honors in political science and French literature. But, Duke University has gone the way of nearly everything else in our culture. Frankly, it's been destroyed. I would hesitate to send any kid to Duke University today. It's become the Berkeley of the South. It's become radical left. Not only did they years ago try to frame the lacrosse team for false allegations of sexual harassment and abuse, similar to what I discussed in the segment, but they also allowed for Muslim prayer on campus. At the time I was Jewish. I wasn't formally a Christian at that time. I became a Christian later when Jesus came to me on one occasion, two occasions, and even three occasions. But at that time, and today, Duke is Methodist, okay? Duke is a Methodist school. And there's nothing wrong if Muslim students want to pray, but you don't give them the chapel to do it at Duke University. And then when the alumni objected to that, allow them to pray in the main quad, interrupting and disrupting the entire campus because, Muslims pray 5 times a day. They make a lot of noise. And there's a library right next door. It tells you that if you're a minority today, you have more rights than even the majority, wherever it may be. And then Duke in North Carolina, actually had a joint program where they were teaching that Islam was superior to Christianity and Judaism. Unbelievable. Betsy DeVos, when she was Secretary of Labor, killed that one because it had federal funds that were involved. But the thing that really gets under my skin is that Duke, being a very fine institution, always in the top 10 of the universities in terms of the quality of what's being taught, at least it used to be, has a basketball program which has become professional, one and done. Coach K, who used to have some integrity, has lost all of his integrity, Coach Krzyzewski. And what they do is they now take students in, it's called one and done. They come into the university, they have no real relationship to the student body because they're only there for a maximum of a year. And this year, one of the students who got hurt didn't even finish the 1 year. He just left so he could prime himself to be eligible for the NBA draft. And they've turned basically the basketball program into a whorehouse. That's what they've done. But ironically, there's some divine justice because this year, Duke didn't even make the Final Four, or at least rather the NCAA tournament, not the Final Four. And that it caused me to actually root against them in every game because I've been trying to influence them to go back to having student athletes. When I went to Duke, we had great athletes and we even had good basketball teams, but the athletes actually went to class. They actually graduated. There's also talk about paying student athletes, so to speak, at Duke. Of course, they're not student athletes in the basketball program. They're simply ringers. They're professional ringers. Paying them. To go to a school like Duke, you get about $500,000 worth of education, including room and board if you've got a scholarship. I think that's pretty good compensation. And this is happening throughout amateur sports. It's even creeping into golf that big sponsors, companies can pay these people money or give them free golf clubs or whatever the case may be. This is symptomatic of the downgrading of our culture, symptomatic of how everything's being reduced to dollars and cents. There's no longer really a lot of integrity in anything. I mean, listen to our music. Listen to see how crappy our music is. I mean, most of it's not even music anymore. And I'm not just talking about rap. I'm talking about everything. There are very few singers or musicians who are actually producing stuff of the quality of what we saw after World War II, even leading up into the 1990s. And this is where we are. And the country basically is ethically, morally, and legally corrupt. And that's why we have to bring it back. That's why we need to start with our universities, our education, and educate. That's why I have this radio show, is to educate. And it's why we're going to have our citizens' grand juries to hold people accountable. And it's why we're going to form a new government. Stay tuned. I'll be right back with Melissa Isaak. Listen to what she has to say about the family law system and how white males are treated and a lot of other things. She's a very wise and brave lawyer, one of the few in this country. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with Melissa Isaak, a very brave attorney, a conservative attorney, a Christian attorney, an attorney who stands up for the rights of people, frankly, who are on the other side of the street these days in terms of where the court system goes and how it metes out so-called justice. Melissa's an attorney in Montgomery, Alabama. She's my co-counsel. I'm her co-counsel on cases involving Chief Justice Roy Moore, a very fine Christian man. You know who Judge Moore is. But I want Melissa to tell us a little bit about her background, you know, how she came to do what she does and what she does, and where people can reach her, because she's one of a kind. She represents only men in family law matters. And of course, as a result of a number of cases that we're working on, she's also become an expert in defamation, which is a growth industry these days, since the leftist media, and frankly, sometimes even the rightist media, controlled by the Republican establishment, defames people to try to destroy them. And not sometimes, but a lot. Melissa, welcome to Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Tell our listeners and our supporters and fellow patriots what you do and why you're so unique.
Well, thank you, Larry. And like you said, I've limited my representation to men. And, initially it was just in family law matters. And, you bring up our defamation cases that we're co-counseling with one another on. And, the more I get into the defamation cases, the more I realize that, this is just like family law, where, but one of my biggest heartaches about the law, about the courts in general, is that, we're litigating a he said, she said, where the allegations have become the evidence, where the judges are making judgment calls based upon their own biases and their own perceptions, and they say, well, the woman became tearful during testimony, which lend her credibility. Say, wow, I grew up, I was raised by a woman who could turn the tears on at will, and I learned that was called manipulation, not necessarily credibility. So, we get into family law cases and the defamation cases where we are litigating cultures, we're litigating stereotypes, and again, where the allegations are the evidence, and it's sad because in a court of law, one thinks and one believes that judgments are based upon evidence, upon credible evidence, upon witnesses, documents, and that's, sorely not the case. But, and then that's really how I got into representing men, is because I grew up and I watched my mother navigate her way through social services, navigate her way through the family courts, to lie to people, lie to professionals, and they just took her word as gospel. She was, I don't know, maybe all of 4'10". My dad was 6'4". He was a Marine, a Vietnam vet, a firefighter, and so it was disheartening for me as a child to see how stereotypes and perceptions, dictated the outcomes of situations, regardless of what the truth was. So, and then, I became a therapist when I was in the Army. became a therapist after I got out of the military, and the problem permeates seemingly every single profession where there's so much subjectivity, and you would think that in the courts there would be less subjectivity, but it's not. And I think that we've all seen that, biased results. We know there's innocent people on death row. Thank God for the Innocence Project. I think that's one of the best things that ever happened to the law, to point out the deficiencies. But, here we are, and, we have state cases of defamation with Judge Roy Moore. We've got federal cases of defamation with Judge Roy Moore, and we can see the differences in the ideology of the judges. Well, folks, that's not justice. If the outcome of your case and if the ruling on motions depends on the politics of the judge and versus the law and the evidence and the facts of the case, you don't have justice. You have you have a kangaroo court, is what you have. And so that's what we're fighting right now. We're fighting politics, and that's certainly been my experience.
Well, we were talking about Duke University before you came on, and although I wasn't involved in this, I certainly was a critic, and I let people know my position. But the Duke lacrosse team a number of years ago basically was lynched by the administration at Duke. They threw them out. They brought them back later. I guess some of them came back. I wouldn't have come back, because of false allegations that they had harassed African-American women down there in Durham, at a party or whatever the case may be. And this is symptomatic of where we are. And now we're dealing with false allegations against Chief Justice Roy Moore, which were put forth during 2 Senate campaigns, not just by the Democrats, but also by the defunct and dead Republican Party, the establishment that wanted to destroy him because he was a threat to them. They couldn't control him. Yep. He believes in certain things that they don't want to sell to the American people to attempt to get elected. Of course, in these days, they can't even get elected anymore because of a fraudulent election system. Be that as it may, tell people about these cases that we're representing Judge Moore on, because it's not just a question of defending this great jurist, this great Christian, but it's for you too, because you have fallen victim to the injustice in the legal system. And you saw it most recently with regard to President Trump, where his own judges threw him under the bus, stabbed him in the back like Brutus in the Roman Senate. And now what do we got? Radical leftists that have taken total control of this country and, frankly, in 6 weeks have destroyed it. So anyway, Melissa, tell us about those cases. You've been in on the ground floor. You have a couple with me. We've got one against Sacha Baron Cohen, even, that we've got to respond to a pleading next week. Give people an understanding of what's involved there.
And I think we were talking about yesterday, it's sad because, when you look at the course of your cases or when you advise clients on strategies or what needs to be done, first thing you look at is who's the judge on the case and who's opposing counsel. It shouldn't matter who the judge is. It shouldn't matter who opposing counsel is. The facts of your case should matter, but we both know it doesn't work that way. In the state case, Judge Moore was sued for defamation for denying the allegations, for categorizing the allegations as false and malicious. He was sued for this. And so, we have a retired Democrat who was appointed on the case, and it's been an uphill battle since then. We've been waiting nearly 2 years on a motion for summary judgment, which, the reading of the case, we're dead on the law. But yet, it's nearly 2 years. Yet, it seems the motions that are filed by, the attorneys for Lee Korfman, their motions are ruled on relatively fast, but ours are not. And also, there's a difference in these burdens that having to meet. It seems like as a plaintiff, Lee Korfman's burden is very low as to what she has to, the standard she has to meet to bring and for this case to be ongoing. Yet, in the federal case, where Judge Moore's the plaintiff, it seems the bar is set so incredibly high that it's almost impossible for the suit to continue. So, we've had, half of the defendants, dismissed, and then, we did an amended complaint, and we had a hearing just a couple of days ago. I'm not sure what's going to change on that. But you have one standard of defamation. But how is it it's interpreted completely different by these two separate judges? Now, one's in state court, one's in federal court. In theory, one shouldn't be more efficient than the other. I won't tell you my opinion of state court. If you're going to ask me, do I think that there's justice? my opinion and my experience has been you're not going to find it in state court. And I was hoping for better in the federal courts, and I think we're going to withhold judgment on this judge right now, and see what kind of orders come out. But if one can be sued for simply denying allegations, categorizing them as false and malicious, and then doing some investigations. That's what Judge Moore, that's what his team did. They got court pleadings from when Lee Corfin was a child, things that she said wasn't quite matching up. So she sues for defamation. We counter-sue for defamation, but the burdens have been stark in comparison.
And of course, the allegations to destroy the judge is that, he sexually abused underage children. They even put up a picture of a young black girl to connote the fact that they believe that he's racist. And I can tell you something, this judge is not racist. And the overwhelming number of people in the South, I consider myself to be a Southerner too, are not racist. Less racist than the North, by the way. But this is the world we live in. And everything's been flipped. And if you're white and you're a male, you have little to any rights. Women can come into court. You've seen it, Melissa. Lie under oath, in a custody proceeding. And when caught lying, nothing happens. They're not prosecuted. They just walk off. Okay, so what? We tried. But most of the time, they're not even caught lying because the judges and magistrates and guardian ad litems, they're all in bed together, making money, hand over fist, calling each other by their first name, slapping themselves on the back. So, this is what we deal with. And then you see it in a bigger context when it gets to challenging a presidential election. And that affects the entire fabric of the country. And that's why Thomas Jefferson, that's why I dedicated my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, to Jefferson. He said, with regard to federal judges in particular, because they're unelected, unaccountable to the people, they will become despots and tyrants. They're no more honest than any other man or woman. And as a result, every 20 years or so, there would be a bloody revolt. And then he added, what's a few thousand dead to refresh the tree of liberty? He didn't want people hurt. I don't want people hurt. You don't want people hurt. But without a legal system that will stand there to fairly adjudicate disputes, people are going to turn to violence. And that's the scary part.
You're absolutely right. That is a scary part. And, we looked at what happened on January 6th. Regardless if you want to say it was Republicans or Democrats, if Antifa was there, regardless, look at the number of people who showed up to the Capitol. That was a showing that, look, we're not happy with what's going on in government. We are not happy with the way. And I'm not just talking about the last 4 years or 8 years or 16 years. Let's go back to the 60s and 70s and look at the policies that were implemented that started tearing apart families. We have we have federal policies that financially incentivize the breakdowns of the family, right? You say, okay, well, we're going to pay you, single mom, as long as you keep your husband out of the picture, as long as you keep the father away. Well, you look at what happened since then. You have this best interest of the child standard. We're looking at custody cases. Fathers have been systematically removed from the lives of families, and there has been a complete breakdown. We're building more prisons. Our children are becoming statistics. And so we have people unhappy with the courts, unhappy with government. They don't feel their voices are heard. You look at Judge Moore. Judge Moore has been in public service for 40-plus years. He is not a multi-millionaire. He's not worth $400 million. How do our politicians make $120,000, $140,000, $160,000 a year, yet 8 years down the road they're worth $40 million? How does that work? So, I'd like to trace this money. I'd like to see who's all on China's payroll. That's what I'd like to see. And
and we're doing a citizens grand jury with Biden because 47 years as a congressman and senator, and he's a multimillionaire with several houses. How did that happen? Now we know. He took bribes. That's it, plain and simple. He's bought and paid for by the butchers of Beijing. And ironically, if communist Chinese had been involved, had controlled our capital on January 6th, they would have done what they did at Tiananmen Square in 1991 and murdered everybody that was there. Students who were simply carrying a mock-up of the Statue of Liberty were murdered by these butchers of Beijing. And now we have a president owned by them. So this is where we are, Melissa. Tell people where they can reach you, because there are few, if any, lawyers that have Melissa's principles and can stand up to powerful people. That's why she's my co-counsel, and that's why I'm hers. But tell everybody where they can reach you in case they need a good lawyer.
I appreciate that, Larry. Our website is protectingmen.com, and our number is 334-770-4MEN.
She is the opposite of Gloria Allred, and she will stand in there for your rights. But if there's a good case for a woman, I'm sure she'd take it too. But anyway, I want to thank you, Melissa, for everything you do. It's my honor to be your co-counsel, and we'll have you back again soon. Until then, God bless and stay safe down there in Alabama, one of the few states that still has any freedom left.
Right, yeah. Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate it.
We'll be back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
You heard it, ladies and gentlemen, fellow patriots. We don't have a justice system that represents everybody. And that's why I wrote the book. It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. It's primarily geared to the breakdown of our legal system. We have compromised and corrupt judges. We have juries that are influenced by those judges. We have an arbitration system which is stacked against little guys. Big corporations put these arbitration clauses in, and arbitrators make decisions for the big guys because that's how they get more business. They get put into contracts that there'll be arbitration instead of litigation. We've got bar associations like the District of Columbia Bar, which are run by a bunch of ultra-leftist hacks that donate heavily to both to the Democrat Party and to other leftist causes. Those who are conservative, people of faith, they're on the hit list. Those who are leftist, they can almost do whatever they want. And this is where the country is today. We've got university systems that have been infiltrated by socialists, communists, and atheists, such as my former university, Duke University, which has even reduced its academic integrity down to ground zero by having a basketball program, which is basically professional, with athletes that have no intention of going past the first year. And then when they get hurt, they even bail out. Like this guy, I think his name was Darryl Johnson, says, I'm not going to stay at Duke anymore. I'm hurt. I can't play. I want to get ready for the NBA draft. I mean, is that the way to have a major university? Is that the way to establish integrity? And even if the school wins, what does it mean? These people don't represent the school. You might as well, root for the Philadelphia 76ers or the Los Angeles Lakers. At least people like LeBron James had some integrity. They didn't even want to go to school. They just wanted to go to the NBA. Same thing for Kobe Bryant. But these people, to occupy a space that a student that really wants to graduate can occupy with a scholarship is an absolute outrage. So this is where our culture has gone. The music, the writings, Dr. Seuss is banned. Curious George is banned. Everything's banned. It's like the years after the French Revolution. The French Revolution was noble. But then it turned bad because the leftists took control of France. And as a result, every day of the week was the same. People referred to each other by the same name. It became so bad that it gave rise to Napoleon. He took charge and he reestablished order in France. And then he became a dictator and got banished to the Isle of Elbe. But right now, what we've got are dictators. Biden and Harris are dictators. Nancy Pelosi is an evil witch, and so is Kamala Harris. They're dictators, and they are trying to take total control of your lives. They've enslaved us. And mark my words, the reparations I referred to earlier with regard to African-American loans, where they get complete forgiveness plus 20% off the top, that's just the beginning. The left is coming for your house. The left is coming for your car. The left is coming for everything you own. They will ultimately take it. Even in South Africa, when the left took power, when the communists took power, the African National Congress, it was communist, by the way. It doesn't condone apartheid, which I was against. I went to South Africa 3 times as a young lawyer. I didn't like it. I refused to represent the South African government when I started my own law firm. They wanted to hire me because I've been doing all the work for my prior law firm, and they knew that they could hire me in a less expensive way. But I said, no, I'm not. But on the other hand, they've destroyed South Africa because they're confiscated property from whites, paid them pennies on the dollar, crime is rampant, and we are turning into a South Africa in this country. And people fled. People didn't want to be there anymore. So people are now fleeing this country. And you know what? There's no place to go. If freedom is lost in this country, as Ronald Reagan said, it will be lost throughout the world. The Europeans have no guts. They just go with the flow. The rest of the world, has other issues. And certainly South America has never gotten democracy to take hold to any great extent. We are the beacon of liberty. And when that is lost, the entire world goes under. Father and his son are watching. They're waiting for us to rise up. And that's why I wrote the book, It Takes a Revolution. I want to play my role in leading you to the promised land. Not 40 years like Moses, but now, because we don't have any time. So I want you to go out and get my book at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. With a contribution of $50 or more, you'll get it for free at freedomwatchusa.org. I want you to support our citizens' grand juries, our Third Continental Congress, our hard-hitting cases against social media, where we're trying to break through. Hopefully we get a judge who has some integrity. These are the things that we're doing, more than just getting documents, more than just going on TV or having radio shows. As I say at the outset of this show, we don't just report the news, we make the news. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, God bless you.
Hey, it's Megan Trainor for Profile by Sanford. Life's really full these days with rehearsing, performing, writing music, and balancing family. I need a nutrition plan that's easy to follow. I need one-on-one nutrition coaching. With nearly 200,000 members nationwide, Profile is transforming lives with one-on-one nutrition coaching and customized plans. Profile has a plan for me, and Profile has a plan for you. Doctor-developed and science-backed. Find your plan at profileplan.com today.
Call 1-888-FARMERS to switch, and you could save an average of $470 on your auto insurance. That's a lot of money in just a few minutes. With savings like that, you could be lounging on an impractical amount of ornate and overpriced throw pillows you bought for your couch. But you won't, because you're better with money than that. That's why you're calling us in the first place. Call 1-888-FARMERS to get a quote today.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Based on average nationwide annual savings survey data July to December 2020, underwritten by Farmers Trucker Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliate. Products not available in every state.
New Extra Charge Hot and Iced Coffee from Dunkin' is made with 20% extra caffeine from green coffee extract, because we could all use a little extra this year. Whether that's an extra boost, some extra boldness, or the drive to go the extra mile, we're extra ready for whatever comes our way and extra excited to take it on. Let's get it done with a medium extra charged coffee from Dunkin' for $2 with 20% more caffeine. And pair it with snackable stuffed bagel minis for an added all-day boost. Order ahead on the Dunkin' app. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. May vary. Limited time offer. May vary. Limited time offer. May vary. Limited time.